What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. Today, we've got another NFL episode for you guys, and we've got some good topics regarding the top teams in the AFC. We've got some topics about a rookie QB who had a career day this past week, and then obviously we've got some Week 10 look-aheads for you guys, so stay tuned for that, and see you guys in a couple seconds.
Steps into it, pass is caught! Touchdown! Play clock at 5. Pass
Back today, so I got time to be tripping and writing no love song. Yeah, writing no love song. We all experience love loss. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. I am one of your hosts, Josh, and I am here, as always, with my co-host and good friend, Parker.
What is up?
And today, as I said in the intro, we are back with another NFL episode. And today, Parker, let's go ahead and start off with an interesting performance that I noticed just off the bat, because I really want to talk about it, because it kind of shocked me fantasy-wise, but also just his performance in general. C.J. Stroud went off. And, I mean, I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think that separated him from the other rookies this year as maybe the front runner and maybe the clear front runner for Rookie of the Year offensively.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as far as offensive rookie, yeah, but I mean, just looking at his stats alone, you cannot, at this point in the season, how everybody else has been playing, you cannot 100% say that he's out of the playoff conversation. And I know that's a stretch, but, I mean, just look at his stats compared to any other quarterback, and Stroud is up there with the best of them. You compare him to someone like Patrick Mahomes, and which a lot of people say this is a down year for Patrick Mahomes. To me personally, I just think that Mahomes doesn't have a lot of weapons, but Stroud is having a much better statistical season than Mahomes. I mean, the dude is thrown for 2,200 passing yards already, 14 touchdowns, and only 1 interception as a rookie on the Texans. Let me say that one more time. A rookie on the Texans through 8 games has only thrown 1 interception. Who would have thought?
I mean, he's making the Texans look good week in and week out. I mean, I know their record's not the best, obviously, but C.J. Stroud and that offense is good.
Their record, they're 500, but the main thing is they are not out of the playoff conversation whatsoever. They're only I believe they're 2 games back. They're 2 games back behind Jacksonville, and which they already beat Jacksonville one time this year. That was one of their wins. They played them again.
That's another thing, is that their conference is so bad this year specifically that they really could easily make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I mean, looking at that AFC South, man. Obviously Richardson's out for the year. And we don't 100% know about Will Levis, if he is really the real deal in Tennessee. But if Lawrence, you obviously got Lawrence. Stroud is becoming not only a star, but a superstar. If Richardson comes back and just continues to improve, and then if Levis is the real deal, that AFC South is going to be a scary division come 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Yeah, and that's assuming everyone can stay healthy and, all the other goodies that comes with being in the NFL.
Yeah,
but,
right.
I mean, just and not only C.J. Stroud, obviously he's not doing this by himself. That receiving core is helping him out a lot, specifically Nico Collins and Tank Dell. I mean, those two are just honestly, they're both young too. So those two are 2 of the best young receivers in the league as far as a young receiving core goes, in my opinion. And to have a rookie QB in C.J. Stroud, who is just dotting up defenses left and right. I mean, this could be a this could be a 3-person offense that people look at in a couple years and go, holy shit, they are really good.
And then also, just kind of like a little underrated weapon they have, and I even said it whenever the Texans signed him, because Dallas just got rid of him, is Dalton Schultz. They just let Dalton Schultz go. He is sneakily, I think I'm saying that right, a top 5 best tight end in football. He, year in and year out, he is consistently putting up numbers compared to some of the quote-unquote best tight ends in football. But he just goes unnoticed because, I mean, he's not the vocal point of an offense like a Travis Kelce or a Mark Andrews, maybe even like a George Kittle. But they got him locked up for a few more years at least. And so that's just another huge weapon for them to kind of just use.
I mean, he had his best game last week against the Buccaneers, 10 receptions, 130 yards, and 1 touchdown. But before that game, he's had a very good season so far. I mean,
yeah,
just looking at his, he's now. Obviously he's not, he's not dropping crazy yardage every week, but it's not like he's doing terrible every week either. His 2 other best games were 61 yards and 65 yards and a touchdown in both of those games respectively. So I mean, he's a very good tight end for sure. Very underrated, I agree. However, did you say top 5 tight end?
And the world, the NFL world that we're living in now, and the tight ends are just so hit or miss nowadays. I feel like, yeah, I would put him in the. I'm not, maybe not top 5, but he is in that top 5 conversation. If he isn't top 5, he's on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I personally, at least me personally, I probably wouldn't have him in that top 5 quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
At least maybe not this year. But I, like you said, he's definitely on the outside looking in for sure. And he's like at the window, like currently, like, he's ready to get in there.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the tight end position this year, though, there's been like a weird lack of, I don't know if it's a lack of production, but like even Travis Kelce really hasn't had a particularly impressive season.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a very similar situation to the running back situation where, and I was talking to somebody the other day about it. I was like, 4 or 5 years ago, you would see every Sunday, like at least one, but sometimes multiple, like huge 60-yard runs for a touchdown. But now you don't see that anymore. And I kind of take that same energy as the running backs to the tight ends. Teams just aren't necessarily using tight ends like they once did, like they're more or less just like, you're going to sit here, you're going to block. If you're not blocking, you're going to do a little, out route for a safety valve throw. And that's about all you're going to be used for. You're not someone like Travis Kelce, who is used for their main like focal point of their offense. You just don't see that at all anymore. And it is kind of discouraging because you have players like Dalton Schultz who, whenever he's getting the opportunity to, make plays, he can do so. He's more than just a blocking big body out there. He can also catch the ball and run. But I think that it's very similar to the running back situation. It's kind of just a dying breed. And I think I brought this up to your attention. I don't know. It might have been on the podcast, but maybe not. And it's not. It's all sports. It is starting to transition to no more positions. Everybody can play each individual position. And for some people, I mean, you're either going to keep up with the trends or you're just going to fade out. And it looks like the tight end routes are starting to fade out.
I mean, you can see that quite literally with Taysom Hill, who for the last 2 weeks, I think now, has been the Saints. I don't know about starting tight end, but he's been one of their tight ends and getting fairly good playing time at that position. And he has had, at least fantasy-wise, 2 back-to-back very good fantasy weeks. So, I mean, you're seeing it in fantasy at least, very clearly. A guy who started off his career as a QB and is now kind of tearing it up again, fantasy-wise, at the tight end position.
You know, speaking of Taysom, I don't know why every year he goes undrafted and then some lucky guy picks him up off of waivers and he goes crazy. I don't know why he continues to go under the radar. The dude can run the ball, he can catch the ball, he can throw the ball. There's been certain times where New Orleans has put him in as a kickoff returner. So, like, he does everything. And every year in fantasy, he completely goes unnoticed when it comes to tight ends. And I just don't understand it.
I think the main reason is because in the first half of the season, you don't actually see anything. And then, like, halfway through the season, they always seem to figure out what to do with him. And then he starts to do something. But even then, it's really not that consistent. I mean, I know he's had 2 good weeks in fantasy back-to-back thus far, but it's fairly common to see him drop off after like 2-3 weeks. So he's just not consistent enough.
If you like, let's just hypothetically speaking, you have a player like David Njoku for the Browns. He is such a hit or miss, and even whenever he hits, his max is like maybe 14 points. But if he's not giving you 14 points, he's giving you 2 points. I would much rather have someone like Taysom Hill, because especially there's such a drop off in tight ends. If you don't get one of those top 3 tight ends, then basically everything else is fair game. It's all basically the same. I would rather have someone like Taysom Hill, who there's a chance that he drops 3-4 touchdowns in one game, compared to someone like Njoku, who might maybe get me 14 points.
Right. You know, speaking of very good tight ends, a decent little segue, I guess, for us here. One of the best in the league, in my opinion, just so happens to be on my favorite team. And my favorite team just so happened to pull out a very intriguing win this past Sunday. And all I can say is Josh Doubs might be the guy. He might be the guy from Minnesota.
Man, I mean, first of all, the Vikings cannot... They can't stay away from the injury bug, dude. I mean, it's been a rough year for Vikings as far as just getting hurt. This week, or this past week, it was Cam Akers who I believe, was it his ACL, maybe? He might have tore his ACL or something like that, but he's out for the season. He tore his Achilles?
Yeah, he tore his Achilles.
So, Akers and Cousins both tore their Achilles?
Yeah.
That's insane. That speaks volumes about the turf, if you ask me. But another player that you guys traded for at the beginning of the season, he goes down. Just another weapon, unfortunately, offensively that Minnesota loses. But like you said, Dobbs came in, and he wasn't even the starter. If I'm not mistaken, he wasn't even the starter, and came from behind and pulled out the win. What did you like from Joshua Dobbs?
I mean, so the original backup, Jaron Hall, he gets hurt in the first quarter, goes into concussion protocol. Joshua Dobbs quite literally is on the sideline teaching the lineman his cadence before going into the game. The line doesn't know his cadence yet. Literally there's no chemistry between these guys, and he's about to go into the game to lead this team to victory. If you're seeing that, your immediate reaction is, oh, we're fucked. We're not winning this shit. Joshua Dobbs goes into the game and drops 20 for 30 on passing attempts, 158 yards and 2 touchdowns, and rushes it 7 times for 66 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. He did it all. He did it all for a total of 3 touchdowns. And he spread the ball around. He got our guys the ball when they needed it. Our guys made plays when they needed to. And Joshua Dobbs looked very, very impressive and very good. And he led us down the field in the fourth quarter for the game-winning field goal. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, he looked very good. He looked very impressive. I know last week I know I said, he could be very good in our offense just because of how high powered our offense is. Now at the time I didn't know how good he would be, but I mean, going up against a fairly good Falcons defense, he shined pretty bright when it looked pretty grim.
And, I mean, good news for Minnesota fans, which I told you so, Josh. And he may not play this week, but there is a man named Justin Jefferson who is eligible to come back onto the field this upcoming week, Week 10. They haven't officially confirmed if he is playing or not, but that right there can just change. That can change everything. As good as Dobbs looked that first game, imagine you give him the best receiver in football, just straight up, just like, here, take him, like that. Who knows who knows what the ceiling could be for this Vikings team if Dobbs is actually the real deal in Minnesota, and you add someone like Justin Jefferson back.
Yeah, I mean, at least defensively wise, we have arguably a top-tier defensive player of the year candidate in Danielle Hunter on the D-line, who's just tearing up QBs this year. He's at 10 sacks on the year so far. But, I mean, having the defense being exceptional, they're not elite by any means, maybe other than Danielle Hunter, but they're doing what they need to be doing. But on offense, if Joshua Dobbs can play that good without Jay Jettas, like you said, and still get very good production from TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison and Alexander Madison, which, by the way, had a decent game himself. I mean, didn't necessarily carry the ball great, but 2 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. I mean, He had a pretty good receiving game. I know it was only 2 receptions, but he turned those receptions into yards, which is very good. But like you said, Joshua Dobbs getting Jay Jettas plus having Addison and Hawk, I mean, that could be a receiving trio that if Josh Dobbs can keep that production going like he did this most recent week, I mean, the Vikings could become a very dangerous team, and we could look like Kirk never got hurt, or we could even look better than if Kirk was even healthy still. So, I mean, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but I mean it is. Technically, it is. But we could also hit a very hard reality check. It's only been 1 game, so I'm staying optimistic. But I do think Josh Dobbs gave us all a lot of hope as far as what this upcoming week and what the rest of the season can hold for us as far as the Vikings season goes.
Yeah, I mean, for the Vikings, I think that it's gonna come down to the end of your all season. Obviously, it's pretty much gonna be a 2-way race between you and Detroit.
Which, by the way, I do want to say real quick, Jaron Hall, all things considered, had a good game before he got taken out of the game. He went 5 for 6 for 78 yards. He was having a very good game up to that point, and I hope he gets well soon. You hate to see a young player get taken out of a game like that. I know it's only a concussion, which, concussions suck, obviously. Guys are forced to retire from them all the time, so hopefully Jaron Hall gets well soon. He played very good before Joshua Dobbs came in. But yeah, no, the QB position without Kirk looks promising.
Yeah, I feel like we just didn't get that big of a sample size from Jaron Hall to kind of truly
I agree.
critique him just yet.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, back to what I was saying is it's going to come down to the end of your all season where you guys played Detroit twice in 3 weeks to end the year. I mean, obviously there's a lot more football to be played before then. But looking at your all schedule, You guys got a pretty tough matchup against New Orleans this upcoming week. But then you go Broncos, Bears, which should be 2 easy wins. Bye week, Raiders, which should be another win. So, I mean, if you guys could pull out a win this week, you guys could be sitting 6, 7, 8, 9-4 going into the final stretch of the year. The playoffs are more than capable of being reached for Minnesota, and it's just going to be it's an interesting story or team to kind of continue to look out for. Same with Detroit as well.
Yeah. I just saw something that I wanted to talk about, and it completely blanked out of my mind. Give me 1 second here.
Well, I got you.
The Raiders, Mike McDaniel. It happened a few days ago now, so it's kind of old news, but I don't think we talked about it on the last podcast. Mike McDaniel and the GM got fired.
That actually happened as soon as we finished recording last
right,
week's podcast.
That's right. So after we finished recording last NFL episodes, the last podcast, and whatever, you guys get what I'm saying. Mike McDaniel and the Raiders GM both got fired literally moments after we got done recording. So, Parker, if you don't mind, we're going to talk about it now. Mike McDaniel was a horrible coach, and I'm so glad that Oakland or Las Vegas was able to get rid of him because he just was not good. There's actually a lot of stories coming out now, which I'm sure some of them probably aren't true, but there's a lot of stories about him coming out that paint him in a horrible picture and as like a terrible, shitty coach. But first game after those firings, they beat the Giants 30-6. Could we see a Raiders turnaround here at the midseason point, Parker?
No, unfortunately not. Especially however long Garoppolo's out. I mean, Aiden O'Connell has not done terrible, especially against the Vikings or the Giants. He didn't do terrible, but I don't see this team really going anywhere. I mean, I see why the firings happened. I mean, it's for offensively, you brought in a quarterback like Garoppolo who, if you ask me, has done nothing wrong in his career. He all he has ever done is win. You bring in a top 3 receiver in Devontae Adams. Josh Jacobs breaks off last year. You think he's going to be the real deal, and then they seriously look like, okay, this is our time. We're actually going to put it together this year, and we're going to make a serious threat. And they could never really get their feet off the ground. And I don't know what the right direction for Las Vegas is going forward. If that is just completely having a fire sale, getting rid of everybody. I did see talks of right before the deadline that the Jets were actually interested in Devontae Adams. It just didn't go anywhere, but maybe that's what Las Vegas has to do. They just need to kind of have a fire sale, let everybody go, and start stacking up.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially with Tay, because Tay has made it pretty public that he, loves Vegas, like that's where he really wanted to be, but he's also made it pretty damn public that he only went there because of Carr, and then they immediately got rid of Carr literally the moment Tay got there pretty much. So it's very interesting to see Tay now, which I think he's still okay with being in Vegas, but I gotta be honest, I don't think he likes Jimmy G as his QB. I don't think any of that team likes Jimmy G as their QB. Personally, I don't like Jimmy G as their QB. Call me a hater. I'll be a top tier hater right now. I don't think Jimmy G's that great. I think he's just kind of in a system QB his whole career.
Why do you say that? He literally
Well, look at his stats this year. He hasn't played. Good at all this year.
I'll give you this year. But before this year, he has literally done nothing but win in his career. Nothing but. He was the reason why the 49ers
Right, because he was on the best team in the league for his entire career, pretty much.
But not even then. You look beforehand, and you look back in his New England days, whenever Tom Brady wasn't playing and he got hurt or he was suspended, Garoppolo was the guy. I would hope you would agree with me, a very subpar New England team. He led them to one of the best records in the NFL, led them to a playoff. Obviously, Brady came back and ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, but that's Brady. No matter what Garoppolo has done his entire career, he's always won. Always.
Hold on, I'm trying to like.
I think Garoppolo is. I'm not saying now. I'm gassing him right now, but
Okay, so real quick. In 2014, I'll give you this. He came in. He played 6 games. I believe this is when Brady got hurt. Like or suspended. One of the two. He came in. Yeah. He played okay. 19 completions for 27 attempts in 6 games. I mean, I guess that's okay. They didn't really pass at all when he played. They did wind up winning the Super Bowl that year. Obviously, right. Brady came back for the playoffs and led them to that point. And then in 2016, they also won the Super Bowl again, and I believe that's the year that
Brady was suspended.
One of these years, Brady tore his ACL.
He got hurt and then he got suspended.
And then the other one he got suspended. Yeah, but regardless, in both Super Bowl years he played 6 games. The 2016 year he actually threw the ball more, and that was actually a better. I'm pretty sure that was the year where everyone was like, "Hey, are we going to see a QB controversy this year?" And then Bill Belichick just kind of laughed in their face and was like, "Seriously?" Like,
right? I mean, you're comparing him to the GOAT.
To your point where. Well, did you say the Patriots were a subpar Patriots team, or did you say what did you say was subpar?
That Patriots offense was beyond subpar. I mean, obviously you had Gronk, and then you had a decently good receiver in Julian Edelman, but who else did they have?
I mean, that's not valid at all. In 2014, they had the 4th best offense in the league, and then in 2016, they had the 3rd best. So
because they had the greatest quarterback of all time on their team.
Right, but you're saying that's a subpar Patriots team. It's obviously not. They won the Super Bowl and had a top 5 offense in both.
Because they had the greatest quarterback of all time. He made that offense that good. That is why Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl last year. Their offense was not good at all. They had Travis Kelce and who else? But they made their team a super team because Patrick Mahomes is that good.
Okay, so if we're saying that, so you think the Chiefs are subpar then? No?
Yes, 100%. Their offense, yes.
Okay. Well, then then I guess I don't really have anything to argue with that. I disagree with you, but I mean,
why do you disagree? Because behind Travis Kelce, we'll give you Travis Kelce. Who else? What other weapon is there in Kansas City that is legit? Before or after Tyreek Hill?
I mean, I don't think you can't point at anybody and be like, oh yeah, they're a threat. But I think because of Patrick Mahomes, everyone on that offense is a threat.
That's my point. The reason they were so good was because Tom Brady was on that team. That's my point. That's why their offense was so good, is because Tom Brady made them that good. When Tom Brady was not playing, he was hurt and suspended, that's a subpar team. And Jimmy Garoppolo helped them win.
I guess. I mean, I don't agree with you, but even if we look past that when he was a backup, and we look at his time in San Francisco where he got his chance as a starter. I mean, what would you say about those teams?
Are you talking about, like, I mean, last year? didn't Trey
Just his whole Niners stint, I suppose.
didn't Trey Lance get hurt the first game of the season or the second game, one of the two?
Yeah. Last year he was relegated to the backup, but Trey Lance got hurt, and then he became the starter or whatever until he got hurt, and then Purdy came in.
He and Garoppolo didn't get hurt until the playoffs, and then obviously no one can tell what would happen if Garoppolo was healthy, but I mean, Lance got hurt the first game of the season. Garoppolo was the starter for the rest of the season. He led the 49ers in a pretty good NFC Western Conference or division. He led them to the number 1 seed in the NFC West. He led them to the playoffs. I mean, I will give you this, that this 49ers team, especially after they got McCaffrey last year, I mean, they got weapons out.
I mean,
the ass.
yeah, they became like significantly better.
Yeah, and I'll give you that, but still, I mean, Garoppolo, he did his job. And this is what I was saying. I'm gassing him up here. I'm not saying that he is on the same level as a Josh Allen type of player, or a Patrick Mahomes type of player. But no matter what situation he has been put in, whether it's a average team or a good team, he has always done his job. Always. Until this year.
It's really weird because, like, when you look at his stint with the Patriots, obviously he was the backup there. And then when you look at his stint with the 49ers, from 2017 up until 2019, which he did lead that 2019 team to the Super Bowl. I will give him that. That was a very good year by him, or at least, it was an exceptional year. So 2019 aside, every year before that, his first 2 years on the Niners, he was a backup, and then he stepped in 2019, led them to the Super Bowl, but after that, he got relegated pretty much right back to the backup in 2020, and then in 2021, I believe he became the starter again. So in my opinion, he's never even been the starter, like, long enough to even say that all he does is win. Because every time that he has been the starter, he has been on a team that is already succeeding, or a team that is just the best in the league. So, I mean, that's just my own opinion. But
and which is
obviously,
fair.
You have a differing opinion, but
I've always said, I think that Garoppolo is one of the most mistreated quarterbacks. I mean, like you said, he's always been the backup. He's the backup. That's for whatever reason, the backup gets hurt, or they're not performing like they want him to, and Garoppolo steps in, and he has always won. He has always won, regardless. I mean, he's played 80 games, which is a really big sample size, to be fair. 80 games is a lot. And because I got his stats pulled up here. So he's I guess, okay, let me say he started 63 games. He has done pretty good. A completion percentage of 67% in his career. A touchdown to interception ratio of 94-51. It's pretty solid. That's pretty solid for a so-called backup. I just think that he's never gotten the shot. And maybe this is the silver lining here in Las Vegas. He finally got the shot to be the official starter. So, I mean, I don't know. I honestly think that Garoppolo is a good quarterback.
But even then in Las Vegas, he's getting benched as replaced, which we saw last week. Which he's been hurt this year. Which sucks for the guy, because like this year he can't stay healthy. So, like, obviously, I'd love to see him prove me wrong. I mean, I would like to see him do good, but he just can't stay healthy this year, which, could do with age maybe, or just because, honestly, I don't know. But that's also been a lingering problem throughout his career too. Like, he can't stay healthy. It seems like he only has I believe he has one full season under his belt and then another almost full season under his belt. But other than that, he's never played a full season. So I just, that just makes me super confused on what to think about the guy, because we say that, he all he does is win, which to an extent, sure, but he's also never given us multiple seasons where all he does is win.
Yes, but to play devil's advocate, when he does play, he wins. And until this year.
Yeah, this year was fucking stupid, though. That whole franchise is just in shambles.
But, I mean, I guess moving on from Garoppolo, another quarterback situation that I want to talk about that is kind of intertwined is the team that Las Vegas beat the brakes off of, the New York Giants. Daniel Jones, he was hurt. I think it might have been concussion, but it could have been something else. He comes back, and the first game he comes back, he tears his ACL. What in the world is going on in New York? Because they have the weapons. They could probably use some better receivers, but I mean, they have decent weapons on offense. They have a really young and solid defense, but they just can't seem to put it together. I mean, what direction does New York go?
I mean, Daniel Jones has been, personally, in my own opinion, last year was such a fluke season for the Giants, and Daniel Jones, I mean, all things considered, he's been okay, I guess, but like, in all honesty, he's not great, and he's not like honestly, he's not good. But I mean, obviously, it sucks to see a guy go down like that. But it's one of those things where it's like, the Giants. I would assume the Giants are gonna maybe address the QB situation come this offseason. Because I don't think Daniel Jones. Now I know they just signed him to like a long-term contract, or maybe it was a long-term contract. I think maybe it might have only been like a 2-year contract or something. But I do think they're gonna replace him this offseason just because I don't think he's that good, and I think last year was kind of a one-year wonder type of season where he kind of tricked them into giving him a bigger contract.
Yeah, also, I think that it had something to do with Saquon finally being healthy again. And, Saquon is a game changer.
Yeah, being like a Saquon merchant somewhat, to an extent.
Right.
Yeah, but like even this year, for example, like I feel like we can say this for so many QBs this year, but like he's been so injury ridden this year that like he really hasn't played in that many games. But I mean, really just been pretty terrible this year. So yeah, I don't think he's the guy. I would assume they'd address it in the offseason, whether it's free agency or the draft. But yeah, it sucks to see him go down. Obviously, you don't ever want to see a player go down like that. But yeah, that it is what it is.
Off the top of your head, do you know who's expected to be a free agency as far as the quarterback world goes? Obviously, I know Kirk Cousins, but
yeah, Kirk Cousins. I'm
sure I can pull it. I can pull it up real quick.
Well, we could definitely pull it up real quick. Let's see. We've got Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins. Let's see.
Wow, I'm looking it up. There's not a lot.
As of right now, I think that might be it.
Baker
We've got
Mayfield.
Tyrod Taylor, I guess. He could come back to the Giants. Marcus Mariota. A lot of backups. A lot of backup QBs right now that would probably back up to him. So,
nothing like last year.
Yeah, nothing crazy or anything like that. But, I mean, in all honesty, Baker, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk, I mean, those three guys could, but that's if they were to go the free agent way. But
that's neither here nor there yet.
It is what it is. It is what it is in New York. I think they're kind of still rebuilding. I think last year was kind of a fluke season for them.
Yeah. Another thing I kind of want to talk about this past week, which is kind of just been eating at my mind because I can't wrap my head, or I just don't understand why they continue week in and week out, still get so much hype behind them. It's the Dallas Cowboys. They lost to the Eagles 28-23. And yet people are still saying that there is a good chance that the Cowboys can come back and win the East, the NFC East, and which it is. There is a possibility, but I'm so tired. I'm so tired of seeing, and I'm a former Cowboys fan. I'm so tired of seeing the Cowboys continuously be hyped up as this powerhouse team. I hate to say it, but Dak Prescott needs to go. He is not the answer whatsoever. I mean, I don't know how much of the game you actually watched, but there was multiple plays that Dak Prescott did on his own that more or less lost him the game. The biggest one was a 2-point conversion that he took off scrambling to a pylon, and he steps out of bounds before the ball crosses the plane. And it was a tight play. It wasn't like he had all the time, all the room in the world to do whatever he wanted to. But you're an NFL quarterback. You gotta know where you're at on the field. You gotta know where that line is, that out of bounds line is. And it sounds crazy for me to sit here and say this stuff, but I mean, you saw it last year in the playoffs. He collapsed under pressure. He's collapsing again this year. Dak Prescott's got to go. Do you agree with me?
I mean, I'm box score watching here, so it's kind of like I didn't watch the game. So off the box score, I mean, it looks like he played phenomenal. 29 on 44 attempts for 374 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So, I mean, box score looking, it looks like he played phenomenal. But obviously, off the sounds of it, it sounds like he made a couple questionable plays that then became, game-deciding plays.
He had a great game. Don't get me wrong. He had a great game. Like you just read off the stats. That is a phenomenal game. But we saw it like last year against the 49ers. Him scrambling down midfield with no timeouts left, with like 30 seconds left, not letting the referee touch the ball before he hikes it. You see him stepping out of bounds when he shouldn't be now. He is just, his whole career, when it matters the most, he continuously comes up short over and over and over again. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to win you a Super Bowl as a quarterback that just completely crumbles under pressure. And I'm sure next week they're playing the Giants, and they'll probably beat the Giants by 40. And everybody's going to be talking that the Cowboys are back, and they're going to win the East, and they're going to go on to the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, all this stuff. Me being a former Cowboy fan, I'm looking right through all this bluff. I'm so tired of it. I think Dak Prescott is a good quarterback, but he's not a Super Bowl quarterback.
Yeah. Another thing that's concerning to me for the Cowboys, and I'm not even saying this because I own him in fantasy, but they need to figure out what the hell to do with Tony Pollard. Because the guy, ever since the first couple games in the start of the season, the guy has done jack shit. And, I mean, this is a guy who was phenomenal last year and showed flashes of his potential 2 years ago. And then you look at this year, and you look at this year where he's the sole starter on the team, and he is doing literally nothing. He has gone, I think, like 126 touches without a touchdown now. And I'm pretty sure that's like a record-setting number of touches without a touchdown. I mean, I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the O-line. I don't know if it's the rushing plays they have schemed up for him. But it feels like every time he touches the ball, he literally just runs up the middle into the O-line and immediately just gets tackled for no gain. I mean, he's averaging 4 yards a carry. It's so aggravating to watch because, you know, obviously he's on my fantasy team, so I gotta watch him play every now and then. But even just watching what's happening is aggravating. Like, it's so frustrating to see that. Even if he wasn't on my fantasy team, if I was watching him just run up the middle and get stuffed at the line every play, that would be so frustrating to watch. Because if you look at last year, he had so many house calls where he just bounced it out to the outside or found the right hole and took off for a long run. And this year, he hasn't done it at all, pretty much, and it's so annoying. So annoying.
I think Pollard's situation is just them getting rid of Zeke and making him the full-time starter was probably just a bad thing for his career. Maybe he is the type of running back, and we see it all the time, especially nowadays, running backs that just benefit better by not being a full-time third down running or a 3-down running back. And Pollard might just be one of those guys. You know he's got the quickness. You know he's got the elusiveness, but he can't just take over a ball game like he was last year. And I think that it has to do with even when he was taking off a ball game or taking over a ball game and getting 20 carries a game, Zeke was right there with him getting 15 carries. So I think that overall it's just he's not meant to be a running back solely alone in the backfield.
Right. Which sucks because, I mean, he's talented. He's very talented. But the fact that if what you're saying is true and he can't be the sole starter, I mean, it's kind of sad, to be honest. But, I mean, you know, a lot goes into the game. So I'm obviously not an NFL player, so I can't even begin to comprehend, like, how much goes into that. But
I mean, look at Miami.
Frustrating.
Look how Miami's doing it. I mean, Miami's got 3 or 4 running backs that are all good at separate things, and they just kind of find that sweet spot in the middle, and they use them correctly. And Miami really has one of the best running games in football this year. And I think it's just because they don't have one superstar running back. They have a bunch of really good running backs that just all mesh well together. And I think Pollard is that type of player that just is a really good running back but needs somebody else to kind of separate him from the rest.
Right. All right. I got a question for you, Parker. Are you ready for the question?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Are the Baltimore Ravens the best team in the AFC?
The Baltimore Ravens might just be the best team in football as of right now.
In football.
Now, you have teams like the Eagles that are red hot. Teams like the Bengals who are continuously looking better every week. Obviously, you got the Chiefs, the Chiefs are going to Chiefs with Mahomes. But overall, offensively, defensively, special teams, elite, I guess, the Ravens are just dominating teams, and it's not close. I mean, some of these scores are I mean, I guess you could say some of these scores are close, but if you actually watch the Ravens play, I mean, it looks like a professional team playing college teams right now, in my opinion. And obviously this happens in the seasons. Teams just get really, really hot. But man, right now the Ravens are looking like a serious threat this year, which I have always said in the past that they haven't been a serious threat. They're always a good regular season team, but just not a good playoff team. But this year, it's a different story, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention, Lamar is playing at such a high level this season. And we've talked about it plenty of times in our discussions about, Louisville and Kentucky, but really just showing the electrifying ability that he has to just take over a game and just honestly carry his team to a win. I mean, 4 wins in a row in the past 4 weeks. He started off with a win against Tennessee where he threw 21 for 30, 223 yards, and a touchdown. The week after that, they beat the Lions 38-6. Lamar goes 21 for 27 with 357 yards and 3 touchdowns. The week after that, they beat Arizona 31-24. He goes 18 for 27, 157 yards passing. But let's see here. Hold on. Sorry.
Here, I have a take on Lamar.
Go ahead.
My take on Lamar is we know, especially me and you, especially watching him since he was 18 years old. He is talented, man. He is so incredibly talented, and he can tear up any defense. We saw it on his MVP campaign year. But what I think that Baltimore has finally done, which they should have been doing this whole time Lamar has been in Baltimore, they have finally found how to use Lamar properly. Instead of just, I feel like years past, they have just let him kind of more or less do whatever he wants, kind of just let him make plays, and they're starting to kind of get away from that. You see that with just the running attack, not just Lamar, but Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell had a really good game this past week. They're finally not just focusing on Lamar doing everything, and they are spreading the love finally and letting other running backs who are talented like Gus Edwards kind of just go on cruise control. Kind of just everything meshes together, and it's obviously it's working.
Yeah, and not to mention the receivers having themselves a season too. I mean, Mark Andrews is looking like one of the best tight ends in the league again after a 2-year dip in production. Mark Andrews is looking like he's back to what he was in 2019 because he's just playing phenomenal as well. And then, the rookie Zay Flowers is playing very well too in his own right. Just those two, and then plus, Odell's missed 2 games, but Odell's, he's playing good too. And even Nelson Aguilar, the man who is known for not having good hands, just that receiving core is playing very well. They're helping Lamar, which is what Lamar needed. It's what everyone has been saying Lamar needed, and he finally has some help. And like you said, he's not having to do everything himself, and we're obviously seeing the benefits from it. And then also, not to mention, that defense is stifling, whatever the word is. That defense knows how to shut people down.
I think that this Baltimore team is really good. I'm just curious to see what they do in the playoffs, man. Like I said, this is a different Baltimore team that we've seen in the past, but it's if you're just kind of just glancing, it's the same thing that has happened for the past, not last year. They had a down year last year, but that was also because Lamar was in and out of injuries. But other than that, every year Baltimore does the same thing. They are one of the best regular season teams, and they can't put it together in the playoffs. So all this could mean just jack shit. I'm just curious to see if they can translate all of this success to the playoffs whenever it matters most.
Yeah, listen, here's what I'll say. They have two division games coming up back to back. They play Cleveland this week, and then they play the Bengals the week after that. If they can beat both of those teams,
wait. Did you say Did you say Bengals?
The Bengals?
It's the Bengals, not the Bengals. The Bengals.
They play the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals.
Bengals, not Bengals.
Bagels.
Bengals.
Bagels.
Bengals.
Bagels.
Okay, whatever. Go on.
They play the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals back to back, and if they can beat both of them, and it's in impressive fashion, like how they've won the past 4 weeks, I think it'll turn a lot of people's heads that maybe aren't looking at the Ravens, at least as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I could spend time talking about. The AFC North is looking like, well, not even looking like, they are far and away the best division in football. I mean, every team is at least 2 games above 500. Especially a team like the Steelers I just don't know how Mike Tomlin continues to do it every single year, is put a good roster out on the field. But he does. The Bengals, like I said earlier, every year every week they are continuously getting hotter and hotter. And the Browns, as a train wreck as they have always been, they're keeping their head above water. And so, I mean, they're by far the best division in football. I'm curious just to see if the Ravens are the Ravens the kingpin of that division, or is it all just kind of a free-for-all in the North? And I'm more excited, obviously, about the Ravens and Bengals game, because Joe Burrow versus Lamar Jackson is always a great show.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just it's gonna show a lot for the Ravens and the Bengals and the Browns technically over the next couple weeks.
For sure. It's going to be a exciting next couple of weeks for the Ravens. All right, so moving on from week 9 to week 10, Parker. Do you have any topics or anything that you are excited to see coming into week 10 that you think is worth pointing out?
Yeah, a couple things. One thing, which I don't know how much it's going to matter, being now, like I said, there's a lot of football left, but it is kind of getting late in the year. Kyler Murray is finally making his return to football as the Cardinals are taking on the Falcons. Do you think that it's going to be the same Kyler Murray that we have seen the first couple years of his career, or is he's taking a step back after what is it? It's almost, I feel like it's almost been 2 years since he's played football.
I think that Kyler Murray, I honestly think he could have a rusty first game, maybe even a rusty first 2 games back. But I do think Kyler Murray is good. I think he is talented. We've seen that before from him. We've seen how talented he is. And, all things considered, I think with Kyler, I think that Cardinals offense becomes way better. We saw what Dobbs could do with that offense in the first few weeks when they looked pretty damn good. Now, I'm not saying by any means that they're like a contender team or anything. By any means, they're still probably the worst team in the league, or maybe the second worst team behind the Panthers. But I do think Kyler is good. I think he is probably in the higher tier quarterback as far as NFC goes. Maybe. We would have to see how he plays, but I'm excited for him to be back. I know that because, like I said, he's shown how good he can be in the past, and if he can be anything close to that, then I think I think it'll be fun to watch for sure.
Right. Another game that is just a game in general to kind of keep your eye on is the 49ers and the Jaguars. The 49ers coming off a bye, almost kind of just about to hit the panic button. They've lost 3 straight, and they've kind of looked pretty horrific doing so. They are going up against a Jaguars team who is another red-hot team. They're 6-2 on the year, and both teams are trying to stay away from their little brothers. Obviously, Jacksonville's trying to keep their head above water over the Titans, and for the 49ers, it's the Seattle Seahawks who are right on their tail. So both teams need a win desperately to keep just the momentum rolling for Jacksonville to finally get back on track for the 49ers. I don't know. That's going to be an exciting game, and that's a game I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, especially since the Jaguars are coming off of a 5-game win streak, whereas the Niners are coming off of a 3-game losing streak. So that game's definitely going to be interesting to see and how those two teams go at it. Uh, with the different dynamic being coming in off of a win streak and a losing streak. Um, personally, I'm worried about the Niners because, like you said, the way they've lost those 3 games has just been honestly quite embarrassing for a team that many people think is the best in the league, or at the very least the NFC. So it's very worrying for them.
I mean, just the way the 49ers dominated the Cowboys. I think it was Sunday night, on a Sunday night primetime game. They absolutely murdered the Cowboys. And I mean, at the time, there was nobody touching San Francisco. Like, San Francisco was far and away the best team in the NFL, and they just had a complete collapse over the past 3 weeks. So I mean, technically a month now, where they just can't put it together. They are just, and like I said earlier, they have every weapon in the world that they could have. They have every weapon they could possibly want, and they just, I don't know. I don't know. This is a big game for them to kind of show the world that they are still have big plans and are a Super Bowl threat, and just to be on watch out for them.
Yeah. Um. Here's a nice little topic or a question for you. I got. Um. Let's see, where'd it go? Uh. So Will Levis, he's 1-1 as a starter, but he didn't look too bad in that loss against the Steelers. He didn't throw any touchdowns, and he did have one interception. Granted, it was kind of a crunch time, kind of just throw it up, and it just so happened to be picked off type of deal. But like I said, didn't have a terrible game. What do you make of it, and what do you think of him going forward?
Yeah, I don't know if it was this morning or it might have been yesterday. The Tennessee did announce that Levis will be the starter for the rest of the year. They are sitting Tannehill for the foreseeable future, maybe for the rest of his Tennessee career. This is a big game, a really big game, going up against a division rival in the Buccaneers. I mean, the job is yours, Levis. I mean, you can take it and run with it, or you can leave the door open for someone like Malik Willis, who I know is just dying to get an opportunity. So, I mean, the world is his, and I, as a Kentucky fan, another player, kind of watching him develop and grow up, I'm looking forward to, I hope he succeeds. I really do. And a Buccaneers team that is not a pushover on defense. They have a very solid defense, so it's going to be a good test. I hope that he succeeds.
Yeah, for sure. So, let's see here. I'm trying to think. I've got two little, like, I guess, little games or whatever that I would like to do before we end things here, Parker. The first one, I'm gonna have you name off your from 1 to 5, like in order, starting from the team that you think is at their best and most likely to win the Super Bowl to, the fifth team that you feel is most likely to win the Super Bowl. And then I want you to give me the top 5 teams after, or I'll mention that one after that, so you're not thinking too hard. So give me your 1 through 5 as far as best teams that you're going to give the chance to win the chip this year.
Okay. So, number 1 for me, it's going to be the Eagles. Do you want me to explain myself why on these?
Yes, but with the Eagles, I don't think you have to.
I think that just them coming off last year's loss, they've been there before. They know what the Super Bowl tastes like. I think that they're the clear favorites to win the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, they want to get back there too, especially with the couple players they have that are getting old. With Brandon Graham and Jason Kelce.
Right,
they're hungry for it.
My second one is gonna be the Chiefs. Obviously, I mean, when you have a player like Patrick Mahomes on your team, you can never count them out whatsoever. and I mean, I say that like the Chiefs are struggling this year. They're 7-2. Just Mahomes has played pretty sloppy this year as far as turning the ball over. But they're number 2. I will throw the Ravens in there at number 3. Even though I want to see more from them come playoff time. But I mean, they're the hottest team in football right now, without a doubt, in my opinion. So they're at number 3. I'm gonna throw one at you here. I think that my number 4 spot is actually gonna be the Bengals. They have a lot of players from that Super Bowl team still on that Bengals team. They know how to win in big time moments. We saw it last week against the Bills, and they, like I said, every week they're getting better and better. I would not count them out whatsoever. That's a scary team if they get into the playoffs. And then my 5th, I'm just going to say it because they have so many weapons. I'm going to say the 49ers just because you can't count them out.
I like it.
Who are you thinking?
Do you want it? Do you want to hear mine? So, 1, I'm going to agree with you. 1, I'm going to go Eagles. 2, as of right now, if I had to say it right now, who's looking the most impressive right now? At 2, I'm going to put the Ravens. A 4-game winning streak, and in that 4-game winning streak, Lamar and that team as a whole, defense, offense, everything, they've just looked phenomenal. They've looked way more impressive than the Chiefs have in the last 4 games. So I'm going to put the Ravens at 2. I am going to put the Chiefs at 3, however, just because it is the Chiefs. Like you said, they do have Mahomes, they do have Kelsey, but they are only on a 1-game win streak. They were on a 2-game losing streak before that. And in those 2 games, they showed pretty major cracks in their game that I think if teams can figure them out, we could see them struggle a little bit. But they are the Chiefs. They do have Mahomes. They do have Kelsey. And, quite frankly, their defense is performing well. So the Chiefs, 3. At 4. At 4. This is kind of a hot one. That I think I'm going to say at 4. But at 4, I think I'm going to say the Lions. And I think a lot of people are going to call me crazy, I think. But they're 6-2. They're only on a 1-game winning streak right now. But they have looked very good this season. And, I mean, they are just destroying teams. Like, just shredding them apart. And, I mean, and the weapons they have, Amon-Ra, Laporta, Gibbs, they're all looking very good. And they're all helping Jared Goff perform very good. And David Montgomery, yeah.
He comes back this week.
Yeah, and I mean, and Aiden Hutchinson's coming into his own on that defensive line. That defense is looking pretty solid, all things considered. And I don't know. I think they're kind of a dark horse. I think they can kind of make some waves come playoff time.
Yeah, they definitely are. I agree with you. They definitely are in that conversation.
And then at 5, this one's kind of a toss-up for me. I think there's probably 4 teams that I could probably put there. I think for me personally, what's up?
I was like, name all 3 of them. Name in order, like not in order, but in order.
Yeah. So the 3-4 teams that I'd probably put in that number 5 spot, I'd probably go Cowboys, Niners, Bills, Dolphins.
I agree with all of them except for the Dolphins. Just because.
So I was gonna say, if you're gonna disagree with the team, I would not be surprised if it is the Dolphins, because as high powered as that offense is, that defense is a little lackluster to be a championship team.
It's like a Pac-12 team.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
But yeah, and also I think, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, because I love watching their offense. I think their offense is going to fizzle out come towards the end of the season. Just my honest thinking, and I just see it happening.
I don't know if you've looked at their schedule, but they have a very hard schedule coming up, and it's a very hard away schedule.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like all things are just not really pointing in it being the Dolphins' year. which is unfortunate because I
Right.
like the Dolphins.
Yeah. I mean, their coach is probably the funniest in the league, and then obviously all the speed they have on that team, they make it very entertaining to watch. All right.
Right.
On to the next little game I got. Give me your 5. Let's go from. Well, let's go from 5 to 1, and give me your 5 teams that you think should probably just tank for a QB for Caleb Williams. You know the ordeal. Give me the 5 teams that you think should just go ahead and pack it up for the season, and call it a season.
So this is a tough one. This is not going to be in any order. Now, it's also a hard one because you look at some of these bad teams like the Bears, Panthers, and Cardinals. All 3 of them have. Now, if you ask the Bears, they might say something different. They may not like Justin Fields as much as I do. But, I mean, all 3 of them have very good quarterbacks. And it's hard to sit there and say if they do get that number 1 pick, are they just completely selling everything, selling their quarterback to get Caleb Williams? So, I mean, I guess, are you asking me exactly who should tank for Caleb Williams or just who's going to get that number 1 pick?
Not necessarily for Caleb Williams. I just mean teams that don't look like they really have any playoff hopes, teams that should probably just, call it a season and just get ready for the draft as a whole and the offseason as a whole.
Yeah, so this is not going to be any particular order. Number 1, which I think it's pretty clear, is the Panthers. They, despite the Cardinals basically saying they want to tank and just the trash, the dumpster fire that Chicago is putting out every Sunday, I think the Panthers are far and away the worst team in football. So they're going to be my number 1. I'm going to put the Bears at number 2 there. They still just need more weapons. They need more weapons. And I don't know. It really could be Justin Fields. I am a fan of Justin Fields, but I know a lot of people aren't so high on him as they once were. So I'm gonna put the Bears at number 2. Let's see. Number 3 is the Patriots. Mac Jones isn't getting it done, and they have a decent quarterback room of a lot of potential there, but they're pretty awful. They're pretty bad. Defense is way below lackluster. They don't have any offensive weapons. Their O-line's trash. I mean, there's nothing really good to say for New England. I don't mean to be so harsh on them, but that's the truth. The Broncos, obviously, they had such high hopes with Russell Wilson, and I know they just 2 weeks ago beat Kansas City in a shocking game, and it looked like that it just showed the potential that Denver could be, but I think that it could be time for them just to blow it up and start that full rebuild. And then number 5, I'm actually going to throw maybe a shocker to you. It may not be. They're sitting at 3-6, the Los Angeles Rams. And it's weird to say because this is the team that was literally just in the Super Bowl. Won a Super Bowl. What was it, 2-3 years ago at this point, and have a lot of players still on that team. Now they lost a lot, but they have some of their key pieces. But Matthew Stafford in and out of injury. You don't know how much left he has in his tank. Their defense, that they look on paper, they have a good defense, but they continuously just underwhelm me. I think that it's similar to the Broncos. I think it's just time to blow it up and start a new route for them. So those are my 5.
Yeah, that's not a bad 5. My 5 would probably, in all honesty, my 5 would probably be the Patriots, and then all 4 bottom teams in the NFC. Just to keep it plain and simple, I just think those are the 5 teams that just don't really have a chance this season. You got the Giants, who just lost their QB for the season and didn't look good before that. So you got the Giants, you got the Cardinals, who are what they are. They're getting Kyler back, so hopefully he can shine some light on them.
I don't want
a little bit.
I didn't want to put the Cardinals there just because I want to see what they look like over the next couple weeks with Murray. That's the only reason I did not put Arizona in there.
That is a fair argument, but they're already 1-8, so they just they already don't have any chance at all. The Bears, you got Justin Fields dealing with injury, can't seem to stay healthy that long at all this season, and for some reason they just can't seem to figure it out. The Panthers, Bryce Young has quite frankly underperformed this year, hasn't lived up to the number one pick standards. I know it's a lot to perform to, but
you see someone like CJ Stroud.
Yeah, exactly. Just that team as a whole just isn't performing well at all. And then, like you said, the Patriots. I just don't think Mac Jones is the guy. I think they need to figure out a way to move on.
I don't mean to be too harsh on the Patriots, but I don't mean to be too harsh on them, but just overall, like offense, defense, whatever type of category you want to put certain players in. The Patriots are the worst at every one of them. I'm sorry. They don't have. They're not better than anybody else in a single category.
Yeah, I would say if they had their main outside linebacker healthy, Matthew Judon, I'd say they would probably beat a significant amount of teams at the outside linebacker position, just because Matthew Judon's a beast. But he's out for the season, so it is what it is.
Right.
But
yeah,
man, what an injury-ridden season, man. What an injury.
Yeah,
season. It just seems like everyone's going down, dude.
I wanted. This is something I wanted to bring up earlier on the show, and we kind of just got onto another topic. What is your opinion on turf fields? And do you think that we could see a shift of less teams going away from the turf field and resulting of all the injuries that have happened?
I mean, personally, I think they should probably just go to all grass fields, just because there's been so many season-ending, career-ending injuries with turf fields. I know a lot of players lobby for it, and I mean, we're hearing about it more and more. Just like, the Super Bowl last year with the Chiefs and Eagles. You saw all the players complaining about the turf that on the field that night. You saw players changing cleats at halftime because they couldn't keep their grip on the field. It's just like it's just that at what point do you have to see these guys all just getting hurt, ruining their seasons, ruining their careers, to finally just be like, all right, fine. We'll switch up the field so that you guys can stay healthy and produce the best product week in and week out for the fans, because that's all they want, right? That's all they want is the money that they get from the fans, the viewership, and if people are constantly getting injured, you got all these top talents going down, like Nick Chubb, for example. I mean, that's a pretty big hit. Aaron Rodgers. Kirk Cousins. It's just it just sucks that we have to sit here and watch these guys get hurt week in and week out, and it just seems like the league doesn't actually really care.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if just going back to straight just like dirt grass type of thing is the right move. And not just that, I don't think that would ever happen, because then you're looking at more money being spent, because now you need a grounds crew to constantly keep up with it and make sure it looks presentable for NFL standards. And like there's so much more when you have like an actual dirt field, but I think that just turf in a whole, especially with such a big name brand like the NFL, there can be better options, way to improve it. That it is resulting, like, I mean, you see alone what they have done with the helmets over the past couple years. I mean, how significantly less concussions, and like that is like statistical, how many less concussions they are getting every year now that they have constantly and continuously improved the helmets and stuff like that. And I think the same thing can be done for turf fields. And, you know, I think that 100% there needs to be a change in the field that these boys are playing on.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's just one of those things that you can wish for, but you probably won't get unless every single owner in the league comes together and says, "Hey guys, for the betterment of our guys, we really need to get just normal fields." But they wouldn't do that because keeping up with a regular field and normal grass and dirt, you know, like you said, it would cost way too much to them in their minds. So it would never happen. But I mean, we can dream, right?
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think this is there's a lot of really good games, especially as the season continuously gets closer to the end and the playoff picture becomes more and more visible to us. And I mean, very similar to last week in college. You know, it's a week that there's not a lot of like big time matchups. But teams that are winning gotta keep winning. They gotta get their job done. The Ravens, the Jaguars, Bengals. I can go on. The Lions or Chargers, the Cowboys. I mean, all these teams, they gotta keep winning. And if they really are for real about making the playoffs, it's their time to show it now until the end of the season.
Yeah, which, speaking of college football, this week we've got some pretty good games, but obviously it's not the college football episode, so we'll get into that 2 days from now, but,
right.
Yeah. All right, well, Parker, I think that's going to do it from us today. It has been a good episode. We had some very good topics today. I'm going to ask you the question. I think you know what's coming. Do you have anything to say to the viewers?
Yes, actually, I do. I have a lot to say really quick. I've been looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this moment all day. First thing, kind of look out potentially this week, maybe next week, for a TikTok page, Take His Whistle Podcast TikTok. There could be a one of those forming and starting up soon here, or at least that's in my agenda. Second thing, you know, college basketball. It started yesterday. My Kentucky Wildcats, they look phenomenal, and I'm very excited to watch them. The Louisville Cardinals, they picked up a win, so surprisingly, but they picked up a win. Both teams are undefeated on the year.
No comment.
And not that there's a lot of baseball fans out there. I don't know if you all saw the news, but the Chicago Cubs arguably signed the best manager in baseball, our coach, as some people might call it. They hired the best coach in baseball. Man, it is. I'm excited for this baseball season. I will say that. But other than that, that is everything I got to say. And yeah, bless up.
It's a good day to be Parker Mulhall, it sounds like.
It is. It very much is.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. Obviously, as always, we'll see you guys on Thursday for the next college football episode. We appreciate you guys for listening, as always, and we will see you guys in the next one. I have been Josh. That has been Parker, and we'll see you guys.
Peace.